Hi, my name is Emily Estes. I'm a grateful believer and a forgiving father, and I'm in recovery from an eating disorder, anxiety, and depression. They say that when you can tell a story and it doesn't bring up the pain, that's when you know the wound is healed. In writing and sharing my testimony, I feel that just that has happened. Instead of a great amount of pain being brought up for me, I have experienced a tremendous amount of peace, and I've been in complete awe of the work that God has done in my life. And hope and peace is what's filled what that pain used to encompass for me. I'd like to begin my testimony by sharing a passage from Psalm 13. I only want to share the first 4 verses of Psalm 13. There's only 6 verses, but the first 4 verses share the question that I feel like I asked to God before this journey ever began and at the beginning of the journey. David writes in Psalm 13, "How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death, and my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall." A little over a year and a half ago, I was engaging in behaviors that were becoming life-threatening for me. On top of my eating disorder, which involved my battle with food, low self-worth, and negative body image, was my struggle with prescription medication, alcohol, laxative, and diuretic abuse. On top of that, I struggled with anxiety and severe depression with suicidal thoughts. I tell you those things for only one reason in the midst of this entire testimony, and that is to shed a light on what had broken the life within me and what had left me in an absolute pit of despair. This testimony is about something so much greater, and the purpose behind it is to shine the light on the one who restored the life within me, who gave me an absolute sense of hope and peace through my entire journey. While all of my struggles had consumed nearly 10 years of my life, recovery became something that seemed like too far-fetched of an idea to even consider. I didn't know a life aside from the 24/7 battle with all of my afflictions. That was the life that I knew. Aside from that struggle, I felt completely ashamed. I felt very angry, felt guilty, but most of all, I felt completely unworthy of living another day of my life. Multiple times I overdosed, and those nights of being curled up in a ball of physical pain and agony because I was only trying to numb the emotional pain. A pain that I wouldn't acknowledge until the day that I feel like I didn't have a choice anymore. The day that I finally felt the true raw pain was February 24th of 2011. I was at the doctor for another overdose, and in being confined to an exam room with only that IV bag to accompany me, led for some truth to finally seep through the layers of mask I'd been wearing for so long. I cried that day for the first time in months. I felt the pain that I would never allow myself to feel, always trying to hide it with self-inflicted pain in order to numb the emotional thoughts and feelings. The summer before this, I heard the first Christian song that I actually listened to the lyrics to, and it was Better Than a Hallelujah by Amy Grant. In that song, she says that we pour out our miseries, and God hears a melody. In our miseries, he hears a melody. Then she says, beautiful the mess we are. The honest cries of breaking hearts are better than a hallelujah sometimes. Although I had been raised in a very Christian home and I had a basic concept and understanding of God, at this point in my life I had no relationship with God. And I didn't understand the words to Amy Grant's song. First of all, why would God want to hear our miseries? And then through that, how can he hear a melody through everything? I think it's really at that moment that my questions about faith started to evolve, and it started this tug of war in my life. Because I knew the battle of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, engaging in or being actively mindful of an addictive pattern in my life. I knew that life. And even though it wasn't fun and it didn't bring much fulfillment to me, it was easy and there was comfort in that. And over here, I saw people who had faith as a foundation of their life, who had a relationship with God, people who were living life, passionate about things, feeling fulfilled at the end of the day because they were doing something that they felt that they had a purpose for. And that question about faith and that tug of war really began in that fall of 2010. In January then of 2011, I was flipping through radio stations and I landed on Caleb. And I heard about the 30-day challenge to listen to Christian music. I truly attribute my decision to take that challenge up to the fact that this tug of war had already begun in my heart after hearing Amy Grant's song. And I took that challenge. And since that day, in January of 2011, my radio station has not changed. I really believe that it's because in changing my radio station in January, that on February 24th, I realized that death was actually not at all what I really wanted. As much as I had desired it, actually facing it became quite scary for me and quite difficult. But you see, prior to that day, every time I had an opportunity to make a wish, every time I picked up a penny and that was heads up, every time I made a wish on 11/11, and for nearly 10 years when I blew out my birthday candles, I made the exact same wish. And very simply, and very sadly, I wished for death. It was something that was such a daily, frequent occurrence in my life. My relationship with God at that point was non-existent because the only thing that I spoke to him about, never trusting if he was really there, was death. And if he would just answer that for me, if he would just give me that one thing, then I would know that he was truly there and that he truly cared about me. I felt like it was the least he could do for allowing me to face sexual abuse, for making me endure struggles within our family as a child, and for seemingly never answering the prayers that I had cried out until that point. Didn't he owe me something? How could he let all of these things happen to me and then ignore the one request that I had? Death, something that he lets happen to thousands of people every day. It seemed well within his power if he was a God who could do anything. But that desire for death began to diminish in listening to Caleb, and my desire to find a church began to grow. I grew up in a faith that I felt drew the lines between a right and wrong, where if you followed the rules of the church, you were surely going to make it to heaven, except it seemed impossible to meet all of the standards and the expectations. From a very young age, I knew that I was going to hell because I remember the conversation that a priest had in my elementary classroom about sin, where when we sin, it's as if a black X is being marked on our heart for what seemed like forever to me, because the concept that I don't remember talking about was forgiveness. Through my childhood, I had a continuous vision of my heart being blackened with X's. I didn't believe I was ever going to be loved by God because of the darkness and the shame that I felt surrounded me. I certainly didn't understand Jesus' purpose in death and resurrection, and I had no concept of forgiveness, and that we are forgiven because of the price that Christ paid for us. Thankfully, in October of 2011, I entered Sheridan Lutheran Church. I have never experienced the peace and comfort I felt during that first service that I was at. I started attending weekly because each time the message spoke so clearly to me, as if God were saying, "Emily, I have everything that you need. Just come to me, believe me, and trust me. And above all, know that I love you for you. In the moments that I was struggling the most, it seemed like the message was aimed directly at me. And it was very challenging to sit through those services. And sometimes I didn't, because I would run away out of fear. Coming to the understanding that there is nothing, absolutely nothing that I can hide from God. No behavior, no thought, no action, nothing I can hide from God was kind of terrifying for me. I continued to feel that unworthiness at times. I felt that everything that I had done and everything that had happened to me in my past made me undeserving of the love of God. But having reached a state of fairly good recovery in my eating disorder at this point in time, I was encouraged to come to Celebrate Recovery to share my testimony. That was months ago. And here I am now, really only hoping that I can share something meaningful with you all. I came to Celebrate Recovery, met some amazing individuals, and made a commitment to keep coming back because I saw the transformation that was happening in lives here. And I knew that there was something here for me. I was intrigued by the 12-step program. Having been introduced to it while I was at inpatient treatment in California, I had never grabbed a hold of it. And reading through it again a few years later really opened my heart to the work that I had to do in those steps. I went to Celebrate Recovery thinking that I had really accomplished something in overcoming my eating disorder. And I can't undermine what I had accomplished up to that point, but the reality struck me in my first week there, and that I had a lot of work that I still needed to do. I had a great journey in faith that I needed to discover. So it became very clear to me that God was at work more than ever at that moment in my life. It's been very humbling to have to admit to struggling from time to time, to acknowledge that those feelings come back and I have to fight through the desire to engage in behaviors that are far from the recovery road. This past spring, I joined a Bible study at my church, and I made the mistake, which is actually the best mistake of my entire life, of promising the leader I would not quit. No matter how hard it got, I was determined to not let anything get in the way of me completing the study of James. The first chapter of James, though, is what challenged me the most, as it talked about trials and perseverance. A portion of the first chapter of James says to consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be made mature and complete, not lacking anything. But if you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you should believe and not doubt, for the man who doubts is like a wave in the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That man should not expect to receive anything from the Lord, for he is double-minded and unstable in all he does. I was that person. I had my doubts. Even though I saw the greatness of God at work around me and in me, I still, at that moment, questioned my worth to Him. As much as I didn't even want to open my Bible, as much as I didn't want to go to church or Celebrate Recovery or go to this Bible study to continue the book of James, as much as I absolutely just wanted to run, for the first time in my life, I didn't. I kept going back. Celebrate Recovery was a place of transparency for me. It's continued to be. I don't have to ever hide anything in me when I go to Celebrate Recovery, because each week my friends meet me exactly where I am, whether I've had a great week or a terrible week or just a mediocre week. They meet me right where I am, and through it all, knowing firsthand the struggles of the recovery journey, they always offer me God's grace and forgiveness. For the first time in my life, I began persevering through the trials I was facing. And it was a huge aha moment for me to just realize that God had planted a very tiny seed when He led me to changing the music I was listening to, and then when He led me to a church and a Celebrate Recovery group that has become my family of faith. I had no idea that overcoming my eating disorder would primarily revolve around forming a relationship with Jesus Christ, clinging to God in the moments that I wanted to run, and being able to turn to my mentors and friends of faith is what's changed my life. As I continued to study the Word and recently participated in another Bible study this summer, I reached the point of facing something that was still holding me back from fully giving all of myself to Jesus Christ. Forgiveness. I couldn't understand that I wasn't to blame for the trauma of my past and that I could be forgiven for the way in which I dealt with that pain, and that very simply I could be loved for who I was. I have longed to truly be able to forgive myself and my perpetrators, but I don't think that journey really got serious until I came to understand that when I feel hopeless in God's ability to heal and forgive me, I'm the one being prideful. I had the opportunity this summer to go home and be surrounded by God's utmost beauty while working on my family's farm. It was the hours and hours that I spent in the hayfield that has broken yet another seal in my life. Just the hours of being surrounded by the amazing creation of God. I listened to 2 songs this summer on repeat the entire time that I was in the hayfield. And the first of those songs was Matthew West's song, Forgiveness. He says, forgiveness, it falls in the face of all your pride, and it moves away the man inside. It's anger's own worst enemy. And even when the jury and the judge say that you have a right to hold a grudge, there's a whisper in your ear saying, set it free. Forgiveness. I began to understand what it means for God to hear a melody out of everything. I know that no matter what the circumstance, God hears a melody in it all because he hears it all equally, without eyes or ears of judgment. I know that whenever I see God in my life, whether it's something in nature, something I get to witness in a relationship, or an act of kindness of strangers around me, a message I hear at church, or a song that I hear on the radio, I know that those moments are just affirmation that God is right here with me, and they're the best part of my day because they don't happen 24 hours a day, which makes them so incredibly special to me. His arms are always, always open to us. We don't have to go running and searching for him because he's right here, but we have to seek him. I wonder if when I run to God, he doesn't feel the same way I do when I get to see my 2.5-year-old niece. To see the way that her face lights up and she comes to me, the pure acceptance of a child. In that moment, it is absolute love and acceptance that I feel, and there's this pure hope and innocence about it. It's the most incredible sense of peace throughout my days and my weeks. When I go to God, that's the moment that he gets to feel my presence in coming to him. And no matter what I say and what I do and what I take to him in those moments, he never holds me differently, he never loves me differently, and certainly never sees me any differently. To me, that's the absolute beauty of a one-on-one relationship with God. I don't have to share that with anyone else because it's something that only he and I share. And to me, it's the greatest and purest love story in and of itself. Because there's no greater love than the love that we receive from Jesus Christ. Even though I don't always fully comprehend God's love, acceptance, and forgiveness, I finally allowed myself to accept those incredible gifts. And Dara McLean takes the words right off of my heart in her song, Yours Forever. The words that, if I could take what I feel and put it into a message for God, is just how she says it. When she says, thank you for finding me when you did. You changed my life. And now I know that love is all that I'll ever need. I promise my heart and all that I am that I'm yours forever, my love. I've come to know what I have when I'm in the presence of God, and I don't ever want to give that up. I trust that He knows what He has when I'm in His presence, because now more than ever, I trust that He wouldn't have created me if He didn't create something good within me. And even in the moments that I can't see that, He can. Each of us has the opportunity to be free because of the price that Christ paid for us. When we forgive, we offer freedom to ourselves, freedom to let go of the hate, the guilt, the anger, and shame. All of it. I've opened my heart to God in an entirely different way just these past couple of months as I've embarked on a true and honest journey of forgiveness and letting go. I'm learning to let go of my own pride and accept that God has the power and the will to forgive me and to cherish me as His holy child. He's paved my way and brought about healing through my journeys back home, a place that at one point was a place filled with pain. I've begun to understand what it means to have a relationship with God through the good and the bad, and I seek to share all of those moments with Him. My life is one that has become built on a foundation of gratitude. I thank God each day for never, ever, in so many years, answer that plea for death. For never leaving me or forsaking me, but most importantly, for being completely ready and willing to take my hand, as I was the one who finally became ready to trust Him and to love Him. He's a powerful God who's brought about so much healing through all the misery that I held within me. And I'm so grateful that He continues to work within me. It seems like more often people have been asking me what changed in my life, what led me down the recovery journey, and why, from the outside, does it look so easy? I can assure you that in making that transition from this 24/7 battle with eating disorder, behaviors, and addiction to living a life has been the most difficult journey of my life. But the difference is that this life of living with purpose and hope is so much more fulfilling. I made a choice when I moved from the eating disorder world to a world of life. I made the choice to begin living. And in that choice to begin living, I made a choice to face the trials and the struggles and the moments of triumph that come through my life. So it's not that this journey has been easy for me. I tell you again and again, it hasn't been. But the answer has been quite simple. Because this month, on August 24th of 2012, I celebrated 18 months of recovery and truly living a life of recovery. And I can stand here today completely confident that I've reached a state of true and lasting recovery because the answer is quite simple for me. That answer, amid the incredible struggle of a journey, is that I open my heart to the love and the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. That's the answer. That's my testimony. It's that simple for me. He is my absolute Savior. Without Him, my life had completely lost its purpose, but with Him, I have redemption and a renewed hope that I am on this earth with a purpose to live the life that He has planned for me, not what I have planned, and to share the message of His good word. It used to seem ironic to me the way that David ended Psalm 13, and today it makes incredible sense to me. Because for so long, just as David spent 2/3 of his message asking the questions, for so long in my life, I asked the questions when the answer can be summed up so precisely. And as David ends Psalm 13, so I would like to end this testimony. But I trust in your unfailing love, and my heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing of the Lord's praise, for He has been good to me. Thank you.
used to walk this town with my head hanging down. I felt so alone. I was so close to giving up, lost all hope and love, so far from home. Oh, thank you for finding me when you did. You changed my life. Now I believe that love is all that I'll ever need. I promise my heart and all that I am. I'm yours forever, my love. You came and you rescued me, showed me life as it's meant to be, so beautiful. You love me so differently, you chase all my fears away. I'm finally whole. Oh, thank you for finding me when you did. You changed my life. Now I believe that love is all that I'll ever need. I promise my heart and all that I am. I'm with you, you're right beside me. I feel you near, right here to guide me. I'm with you, you're right beside me to guide me home. Thank you for finding me when you did. You changed my